Aloha, everybody. It looks like we're live. I'm Janet Lessin with Theresa J. Morris, and we're doing another episode of what's our show called? Portal Stargate. And
That's
that's our working title. We're figuring it out, but we've been on hiatus basically since COVID hit, and a couple of shows here and there. But we're back, doing what we can to catch up and create a new reality for all the distance, so everybody can have fun. So we're dealing with the Roswell Incident, what they call it. We did part one last week, and it was well received, and we're really grateful for those who showed up. So we're going to start again. Teresa, you want to just say hi to everybody? And,
hi.
how you doing this week? You doing good?
Yeah,
Okay,
can you
good.
see me?
Okay,
I can't see me
yes.
yet. So let me shut down some.
I added you to the
It's
stream,
working.
and so we have the
Okay, let me
anyway, I don't want
shut.
to do text on my, that's boring. Okay, here
Yeah.
we go. So basically, last week, a little quick overview. We did some background on the Roswell incident, the crash in Roswell, New Mexico, and we're just going to go past these real quick. I invite you to go back to last week and look at our show. And I should put the link to it down below, but I didn't do that today. Anyway, there's lots of images. And Teresa's going to go over her involvement in Roswell. I wasn't born in 1947. Teresa wasn't either, but she can explain how she got involved with this whole incident after and during in some way. Oh, so anyway, there was a whole debunking thing that went on. At first, people thought it was a balloon. No, at first they thought it was a real saucer. So that went in all the papers, and then they did a debunking. What would you like to add about the backstory? I'll let you talk.
Well,
So they had original story, and then they did a debunking.
yes, and 1947 is the year of record for most of these radio newspapers, or newspapers that wound up being used in live radio, in audio, and video. So, uh, Janet, we are using their content copies, but this is out of archives, and we're using what's available to us online and open source. And I guess Janet's pulling these copies for educational and entertainment purposes. So, and I have to go take just a brief second while you set this up for us with our mentioning our former all our archives on the radio shows. So, if you will, give a brief for the last before these newspapers. I'll be right back. Okay. I'm sorry. I've got to grab something. I
Okay.
gotta. I'll be right back. But give them an idea of who we are and how we've been working in the ufology, because we're now working with AGI and also GPT, and
Right.
these just tools like apps, but they're going to help us in the future with audio and video. But let's get started with prior. How what give them an idea of how news, if you wanted
Okay.
to,
I'll go back a little bit.
the history,
Yes.
because we're
Go
only
ahead, do
going to
anything.
deal
Come
with,
right back.
yeah, we're dealing
Right.
with newspapers that dealt with ufology and alienology, and
Right.
we're using this for the intention of establishing ourselves as women in ufology and paranormal psychology, and as we are researchers. We have ACE Metaphysical Institute as well as
Okay,
ACE.
go do your thing because we only have an
I'll
hour.
be
I
right
don't want to
back.
go too much. Okay, yeah, we only have an hour. So last week, you can go watch it. We have it up on our YouTube channel. We covered the initial Roswell crash. All these pictures we are using are public source. Anybody can Google them. You'll see them. And I'm sorry, this thing doesn't like to be advanced and reversed, but let's just be nice to the computer. So we were talking about Jesse Marcel, and And Jesse Marcel was this fellow that was kind of put up front, and they were using him to tell the story, the debunking story. Because they initially said it was a real Roswell crash. One of the people that was instrumental was Stanton Friedman. Teresa and I both met Stanton. We're going to cover him later, but I didn't put him in this episode yet. So here's a little background. He was involved with investigating the 1947 Roswell, and we're going to cover about how there was debris of a weather balloon, which was uh, their story, but we're going to go to the backstory behind that, and then the backstory behind that. So ufologist Stanton Friedman believed that the Roswell debris was extraterrestrial, and there's a young Jesse Marcel, and so let's continue. Anyway, I took all this bio stuff, as you can see. This is from everything I use is public source. So we're going what's out in the world. So you can read this. Yeah, you can pause this and read
Who
this.
is Jesse Marcel in ufology, and why is he important? We hope to discuss many.
Because you met Jesse. We covered all this last week, but I added a little bit. Like here's this stuff from what's that called? Wikipedia. This is all Wikipedia. You can find any of this. Any people out there can look, and you'll see this stuff. Here's more Wikipedia. These are public images of Jesse, and so he was involved in having to say this was just a weather balloon, but he didn't like that. We got that later. He did not like that. So let me go to some of the new stuff. Anyway, you can pause this and read this and get more. It ties in with Kenneth Arnold's story. We don't have that in this one. So there's a lot of stuff in ufology and in alienology that ties in with each other. And then so he hid some stuff, materials for later. There's a famous eye bar with hieroglyphics on it. So we covered all this last week. Here you go. This guy was like, oh, shit. I have to say all this stuff because, he's under duress. He has to tell the public story. And then there's this whole, you watched our video last week. Where is it new? Is this new or did we cover this? Anyway.
We did really cover a lot because it's so complicated, and folks, we're speaking to laypersons, so all you ufologists out there, please forgive us if we're stepping on toes without knowing who you are. We don't know our listening audience, so we're building one for UAP associates and cyberspace and space advocates. So that's who we'd like to cater to.
And those radio. So we're still simulcasting. So we have Theresa and I have our individual organizations, but let's talk about the organizations later. Let's stay with the content. So anyway, there was a great alien that they called it captured, but I think she really, and I don't know if she's she.
I don't know what that is. I've never seen that picture you've got up.
Yeah, we don't know. Right? This is what's on the internet. If somebody has any backstory of this image, it would be interesting to know. We don't know if these things are staged. We don't know who it is. Maybe that was your uncle or your great uncle or your great grandfather out there.
If it's your relative, let us know.
Let us know. We'll give you credit. These are what's out there. This is, what's out there on the internet is what the powers that be or the Illuminati or the government, everything that's out there is out there because they want it out there, right? Otherwise, they take it down. I had an incident. They didn't like something I said. I won't mention what I said that they didn't like, but bam, they took my YouTube down and every reference it. Wow. So if the government doesn't like it, they take it down and no one can ever see it again. Or you can't put it up anywhere. It can just be in your home archives.
So you mentioned Aquarian Media. This will be on America Communication Online.
Or ET Radio, which I invite you today to take the audio and upload it to your that network, because that goes to about 20 different places as well. So if you don't know how to do the audio, I'll help you.
Are you
Um,
talking to other people? TJ Marcici Radio is one brand we have on Blog Talk, but it goes out to live
right,
stream, Spreaker, all the iTunes, all the places you expect, Stitcher, all these places you expect to get wherever you're getting your apps, even Sirius. But these are talk shows for the paranormal, so we are
right,
niche genre. Now, Dead Aliens is
yeah,
alienology is the study of aliens, and
right,
Janet specializes in contactee experiencers, which is a whole nother field of people who
right.
experience little
So
grays
with the
or even
Roswell,
others.
like when I googled Roswell dead aliens, there's all kinds of. We don't know what this is about. We just gathered it. This the one in the middle. No, that's one that's at the museum, I think. Yeah, but the one at the bottom middle, and the one on the the two on the bottom to the middle. Those are supposed to be the real bodies, and then people have and the one at the top here, where the leg is all screwed up. That's supposed to be the real body. So, anything you want to say about that slide, TJ? Before I'm
No,
going to go to
these
the
are
next.
just facsimiles or artist. Well, no, they may be artist renditions or they may be photographs, but these are a collection available in cyberspace culture now for those of you that want to study alienology and to figure out what is science fact versus science fiction. And it's a
And we're
lot
just looking at small things.
binary.
Yeah. We're looking at where fact because sometimes the powers that be, the government or whoever wants to release this information, uses fiction to get out information that's real or to manipulate the narrative. So, like this one here, these four, this was from a video, which was a alien autopsy video. Now, I don't know if it's still available because these things are allowed to be out there for a while and then they get taken down and then they get hidden, so you can never no longer find them in the search engines. So that is an unknown. But this was clipped from that alien autopsy video, which was quote unquote leaked. And you know how things
So,
are leaked. They're
so as
leaked
far as
because somebody.
resources go, so you're using the internet, but at the same time, you've got here alien interview with Lawrence Spencer, and we interviewed him on both TJ Marcici Radio
Yes.
and Ascension Radio, and so Aquarian Radio. I mean, I call her Ascension half the time. But what it is we're
Yeah.
building a spiritual community based on the fact that alien civilizations exist. So we want to introduce Errol as a positive affirmation because Lawrence Spencer speaks of a fluent speaker in his book, available on Lulu. And Janet, do you know the name of his book?
Alien interview.
Oh,
And it
that's the
was
one.
about, yeah. So let me see if I have his book cover. No. Oh, here it is. Oops. Sorry, this thing jumped around. So, Alien Interview was a book that Lawrence Spencer wrote, and it was supposed to be this nurse Matilda, and I don't have her full name. Sorry, there something I need to add. But this is supposed to be what the gray alien looked like from Matilda's interview. She was able to listen to what Errol said. Errol was completely telepathic. Apparently, some humans have a natural ability to listen and hear telepathic communication. Not everybody, but so she was the one when they were out. She was the nurse that accompanied them on the crash site because there might have been injured people. They didn't know it was injured beings. While she was at the crash site, she heard Errol communicating. So they found Errol and they took Errol back to the base at Roswell.
Does she look like
So
me, the girl in the picture, with dark hair and a military uniform on?
kind
Same
of,
place?
yeah, a little bit, a little bit, a little bit. There we go. Yep, there's a resemblance. So is that your anyway? Teresa's confessing she was really there.
We don't know what Lewis. We don't want to speak for Mr. Spencer, one of our members that came on our radio shows as an author, but he's been a friend of Janet and I and spoken to me, and he's well out of the limelight now as we've all gotten older. But if you guys out there see us in ufology or alienology, feel free to mention Lewis Spencer, as his book became very well known. And
Lawrence.
What is it?
Lewis Lawrence.
Excuse me, Lawrence.
Now, this is a real picture of Matilda. I mean, Matilda's not really her name. She just represents the nurse, because they were protecting their identities, because these people were all afraid of getting knocked off, killed, murdered. So there's layers of protection. Okay, so then
we're going to talk about the story.
Let me finish my sentence. They took the Greys to Area 51. Okay, so let's look over, because I want to go to the stuff I've added, and we're already 16 minutes into the show.
All right.
Here's Area 51, and TV, what would you like to say about? Do you want to say
Area
about your involvement in
was always in existence on for testing out our planes in the United States of America. However, it was always not on maps. And in the old days, when our first pilots would test military, our planes, before we got into NASA and going into space, we had interaction, allegedly, with extraterrestrials. Now, since Janet and I have been alive, there has been a big exchange of information as to whether or not alien civilizations exist. But we are with Area 51. This is one of the first classified areas that became, I guess it's still classified as far as the military is concerned, but because it became so popular in the intelligence agency for pilots that came and went and alleged aliens, it became very well known on our UFO circuit of places to visit, especially in the last few years. And we can talk about that. And Janet's got a highway that goes close to there. And I have physically been there on several occasions. So this is what Janet wants to get to with all these photos that she has compiled, so she and I can finish our book we've been trying to write. And she met me as a psychic, but she didn't meet me in Las Vegas. She met me in Hawaii. There's the sign. And that extraterrestrial highway, after roughly 2018 and prior to COVID-19, began a whole sensation of someone that sort of photobombed, but back in the day, memed. Janet, I don't think you have that as far as our history and historiology of alienology or alienology with ufology, but it is in social media. And what we were doing
when they were going to crash Roswell, a bunch of people were going to go.
Exactly. Yeah. Do you have that day?
I saw that, but I didn't know if that was.
Well, Janet,
they were a plan of them going, but I wasn't going to go. I do want to mention, notice how people leave their stickers. They say, I was here at the extraterrestrial.
I was going to go, but strictly for press. ACO Press Club. As ACO Press Club, just as a journalist. But
that was a job.
There is a Roswell Museum in where I met Glenn Dennis, but Roswell Alien Tourism.
This thing acts up. Okay, there's that. No.
That's okay. There's how it all goes together. There.
So they have.
Look at the way it's spelled. I'm pointing. See how it's spelled.
because they're pushing ale.
But they say A-E-N. Think about that. That's a cute little twist. And there's Glenn Dennis. And Glenn has
Now,
since expired.
I'm going to have this out of, anyway, let's go with this. I thought I have, okay, so I have Glenn Dennis. I thought I had some other slides with Roswell. But anyway, let's go. So, my question to you, TJ. So, there's Glenn Dennis, and you can pause and read
There
this.
he
This is
is.
from
Dennis came. Here his. Let me read this. Dennis came to the attention of UFO researchers in 1994 when he called the hotline after the episode of Unsolved Mysteries featuring the Roswell UFO incident. He was the first witness to confirm claims of alien bodies at the Roswell base itself. Dennis' accounts featured prominently in Crash at Corona, published in 1992, and The Truth About the UFO Crash at Roswell, published in 1994, as well as other pro-UFO books. But serious doubts about his story were soon raised. Dennis' account is repeated in Witness to Roswell, Unmasking the 60-Year-Old Cover-Up by Thomas Carey and Donald Schmidt, published in 2007. Regarding Dennis providing researchers with a false name, they write, his surprising and disappointing response was, I gave you a phony name because I promised her that I would never reveal it to anyone. The authors that comment that Dennis was found to have knowingly provided false information to investigators, moi, and must stand impeached as a witness. But he, well, let me just read. However, the book also notes the other witnesses have told us that Dennis had told them about the phone calls for child-sized caskets was back when it happened, and that Dennis has told them about his run-in at the base hospital long before Roswell became a household word. Now, Janet would like to dispel what's written here, as she is also a journalist and a blogger in social media. And
this is what always happens. Somebody comes in and says, but they're fake, but they're lying, but. And I've been investigating I'm going through all the, what do you call it, the contactees, experiencers, like the historical records going back to the 40s and 50s. And it seems like there's a period of time with just about all of them where somebody gets to them and they take back their story, or they say I've been lying. And I'm imagining the reason why is that, we're going to kill your daughter, your husband, your mother. There's some threat behind them. And some people spend their entire lives talking about, their contact, and then all of a sudden, near the end of their lives, is like they're backpedaling and saying, and I think that what happened was it really is the truth they were saying, or at least the truth that they understood it to be, and then somebody was threatening them. So it looks like this, and there's always the debunkers. When I did the support group at Penn State, who was that guy's that made that Phil Klass? Phil Klass was bothering us, and he was threatening us. And he couldn't make it to Penn State, but he sent his number 2, which was one of the professors at Penn State. And this guy came up to our group, and he was in there in person debunking, and he was sent by Phil Klass. So they're very well connected, and they have resources. And so here is an article on Wikipedia where it says, "Oh, he must stand impeached," and I say, BS, bullcrap to that. That's the lie. Anyway, that's my opinion, and I'm sticking with it. That Glenn Dennis was telling the truth. Now, he met a nurse, and he didn't give her name either, because you have to protect these people. So that's what he's saying. What did he say?
All right.
I gave names to protect her, right?
Yes.
Even my own name. I'm protecting people because whoever's the power to be, they're dangerous, and they sometimes hurt people or kill them or destroy them economically. They get blackballed. They can't even get hold of a job. Okay, next, but your turn. Go
Okay.
ahead, Teresa.
So I met Glenn Dennis personally while I was on investigation. I also met Jesse Marcel when I was on investigation. So if she and I had discussed, but I want her to do this, so it's best for laypersons to have her present it social media wise for YouTube and Facebook and Twitter and TikTok or whomever she wants to present as a social media gathering of our people, which are authors, consultants, and organizers, along with historians and researchers and alienologists as we grow this, and ufologists. So she's doing me a service by allowing me to present who I am in social media with her about I interviewed Jesse Marcel and Glenn Dennis. So
So
before
let's
my
focus on
husband
Glenn
went,
Dennis first, because I have things on Jesse later. So Glenn Dennis. So tell
okay,
us what happened.
all
How
right, Glenn Dennis and Jesse Marcel, both names are beginning the investigation that I was on for President Ronald Reagan while he was alive. And I was brought back in because he had seen a UFO and he believed in psychics. Or Nancy believed in psychics. Not that it matters, right, what they believe, because this gets so complicated. Because I met Jesse back in the day.
let's do
When,
one at a time. Let's do
well, it's
Jesse.
hard for me because I met him first. But
Well,
all
I
right,
could
so
have had it first, but let's just focus on how did
uh,
you meet Glenn?
all right.
And we'll go.
Always give me the dates to go by of their life force. So you have, because you have Mortician Ross, whether you or somebody out there working in social media for open source intelligence, that Glenn was a mortician who lived in Roswell, who lived 25 to 2015. So the government brought me in May 10th, 1967, and I began with NASA to move forward with alien civilizations exist and UFOs are real story. And I gradually met Stanton T. Friedman, but we missed each other at Jesse Marcel's house, I think. I'm not even sure anymore because of the Men in Black. So I was hoping to tell my story for fun with Men in Black. But we'll do it Janet's way to introduce you. So Glenn, it says, when did you meet Glenn Dennis? I like to see things, folks. So all right, I
Yeah.
met him I believe in this reality, not in 47, but in 1995 to 98 to 2000. I was on the road. What year and what time of year? It was it was summer. And where did you meet with him? Oh, you mean what year and time? I just spoke to
Yeah,
that.
what year, time of year, right? I'm not
Yeah,
giving. I'm not pinpointing
yeah.
to a
It
date. Just like
basically
remember
tells.
time of year.
Yeah, we don't want to be misquoted in our books, but she's trying to write a book with me and together. So that's going to be our portal Stargate. Where did you meet with him? I actually met him for the first time, or maybe not. See, I have to speak because we're going in circles. So one date I explicitly remember was the date I sat in the Roswell UFO Museum. Who was with you? Uh, Sally Hester and Charles Halt had. I think he came to the door. Someone came to the door. So Charles Halt and Glenn Dennis were both associates at the Roswell UFO Museum, and Sally Hester worked as a volunteer. She was a senior, and she volunteered to help because they were incorporating a library of books and making it a library as well as a museum at that time. How long did you visit with him? Over 2 hours or more. What did you discuss? We discussed his involvement with Stanton T. Friedman uh, and Jesse Marcel and the investigation that took place out on a ranch near Roswell, and also the distribution of information and how it had accumulated among everyone that were farmers, and how we could best help in the future with alienology and ufology while we made a museum and a library, as well as make sure I was getting the information correctly firsthand from him for a report that I guess went down in the, I was told it went down in the bottom portion of the Pentagon. What was the purpose of your meeting? I think I just said that.
Yeah.
To gain information and make sure it coincided with information that we would put in the National Archives in the future. So, in a way, I was like a global ambassador and as well as a public relations officer working intelligence between space and back then IBM and NASA and Joint Chiefs of Staff, Allied Command. Your friend, which we have a picture of him holding his cane. What was his name? Dean? Robert
Oh,
O'Dean?
Robert O'Dean. Yeah.
Okay, so that was the purpose of the meeting and the outcome. Oh, I had also talked to Don Berliner then, our Berliner. I forget, and he always was correcting me from the early 70s, who had worked prior in Washington, D.C., and he also worked prior to APRO. Who did he work with? Jan, you'll have to get Jan Aldrich to tell you the Berliner and Stanton T. Friedman connection before they wrote books together. But there were several other investigators at the time putting together books and stories. So there was a lot of people working on the investigations for authors in our association. What was the purpose of your meeting? All right, to establish contact. What was the outcome of your meeting? Acknowledgement that we met and we liked each other in human form, one-on-one, and we would continue helping build an industry globally. What happened after you left? We did not stay in touch except through other people, as is standard with doing investigations, men in black, people that are of interest in ufology. And then most people just follow the storyline after that because you don't want to taint it any further than it already is by other people telling the story at the time. Did you ever meet with him again? No, I did not. What decisions were made at your meeting? To further investigation with Stanton T. Friedman, as he wanted to bow out at the time, and at the same time, he was he had other interests with family and people at that time being criticized. And by 95, they had already been involved. Let's see, 98. Yeah, I believe we already saw that he had contacted someone. So his name of notoriety was already infamous or famous, depending on who you talk to. Uh, what decisions were made at your meeting? Basically, to corroborate a story that alien civilizations exist and UFOs are real. How did you affect the world? Whoa, Janet. That's up to you. Uh, you'll that's for history to tell the tale. Did you meet with anyone else in relationship to Glenn Dennis? Yes, I did. And those are numerous. So can we just leave it at that and go to the next?
Yep. Let's go to the next slide. There's I have this out of sequence. So this is the Roswell Museum that got. Did it look like that when you were there, or is this an update?
No, this is a lot update.
Okay, so
It was still sort of old and stuff. I don't remember all the
yeah.
colors. I think those are, maybe that branding is a little newer in color. The city will know that, as will the movie they
Yeah.
made and the television show. Now, Glenn, I've never seen this until you showed it here last week on ufology or
Yeah,
for
I found
Stargate.
this. Yeah,
Glenn
online.
did
It's
this
like
at Roswell Museum. So I'd never seen this photo, but I like it because he was torn in telling me the truth versus what he was going to be able to help others with, because he had a close relationship with the museum and the city of Roswell and his people, right, in his community. So, they all wanted to help, but at the same time, they were volunteers, Janet, and they
mhm.
didn't. They still had that fear of the men in black and the old guys, right? The government personnel from the old U.S. Army, and I knew that. I had known that, and I had found it in my investigations when I came on board in 1985 as a bona fide ufologist and alienologist. Go ahead.
I have a question. Notice how these aliens look like the one on the cover of Communion, Whitley Strieber's Communion, but
Mm-hmm.
then these have this little silver band around their necks. Do you have any idea what that might be about?
No, they had. I have no idea. This is probably the best architects or artist rendition. I don't know why they're wearing a silver around their neck. Now, technically speaking, I would suggest in movies that they wore a silver uniform that adhered to their body, and they had a uh, we well, I've worn it, so I know. So we
Yeah.
can uh, take that, and we wore stars here, and there was burgundy, and then we had gray suits and we had black suits. So I can tell
Mhm.
you that I think that, unless in some
I have an
artists,
idea. I
what?
think that it looked like they were nude, so they added this color so people will think, well, that's a suit. Because look how they it shows
Uh,
their bodies so much that maybe people think they're nude, and so it looks like an afterthought, right?
well, they
What's
had,
that?
now here's something that is in investigations as to whether they had a gender recognition. Were they
Mm-hmm.
not were they male or female, or neither, or androgynous? And
Yeah.
my on our investigation, they have a body function the same as us. So I don't know what is in this picture because I've not seen this. Came after my visit to Roswell
Oh,
at the
I
museum.
see.
Now, a gentleman came and took
It's kind of,
pictures for me. That was one of the old
oh,
presidents, and I forgot his name. It's hard to say, but it's in our history. All right, so now you've gone to J. Allen Hynek, which I met.
yes. So,
Okay,
and why is he
truthfully,
important with so this whole thing? Yes. Why is he important?
excuse me, I'm still getting over ancient flu or something. All right, allergies maybe. But Joseph Allen Hynek, I did not realize I was being set up again to work intelligence, which I guess I was always working intelligence from May 10th, 1967 as a contractor. But by 1985, he met me in space. But I should say probably 30,000 or above feet in our own
Right.
Earth atmosphere. And he
In a
was an
plane.
astronomer, and I met him in a jet. Yes, and I cannot tell you what type of
Was
jet.
this a
I can't tell you.
commercial? Was this a commercial airline, or was
I
it
don't
private?
know. I don't know. I can't remember. You
How
know,
did you get up? plane? Do you know? Were
No,
you
I don't. All that I don't remember. I do remember that he went between Lowry Air Force Base, Edwards Air Force Base, in Great Lakes and Chicago O'Hare, and I did too. So it's in my mind. I had a meeting at Edwards Air Force Base. I had a meeting at Area 51. I had a meeting at Lowry Air Force Base. And this is over time. And he met me because at the time I didn't know he was dying. He had said he had some health issues. And I said I
so
was
what
sorry
year
to hear
was this? What
he
year
has
about?
to continue his work.
But what year did this happen? This meeting?
1908. I am doing my best to recall. I believe it was 1985
Okay.
in the air for the first time. But that's who I met.
So,
And I believe he had two other gentlemen with him that sat in the back of the plane. And we have an interview out there of me done by that gentleman in Canada that had UFOs with some of our friends in Canada through that gentleman that worked with us, Thomas Becker. His associates did a live interview with me. But what's the question now with J. Allen Hynek? What's your question?
okay. Well, I just wonder what this, I should have did questions the same way I did with the Glenn Dennis, but I didn't do that. But what I guess what we're going to is that J. Allen Hynek had a connection to Close Encounters of the Third Kind because of his what do you call that, identification system. The first Close Encounter of the First
CE
Kind.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
The second kind is physical evidence, and third kind is contact. But it's been expanded since then. But
Yes.
we're going back in time here. So at the time when Close Encounters of the Third Kind was produced, this was the system that was in place that J. Allen Hynek had created.
Was
You
this
know,
Close
and
Encounters?
he
What
had
year?
yeah, Close Encounters was 77, I think. Yeah, 70,
We
maybe
should know
76.
this.
I can look it up. I will add that. That's a good thing. And then what I was reading is because he, was like a what do you call it, an expert that was contributing information to the film. They allowed him to, at the very last scene, he comes up in his natural self, not an actor. He gets a cameo, what's called a cameo, and
Oh, I
he
didn't know
walks
that.
up close with his standard pipe, like Sherlock Holmes, and
Oh,
he,
that's
he gets to
great.
see the alien up close. So that was really cool. So let
Yeah.
me just see what else is there. There's another picture. Very interesting fellow. Then they
Oh, we
went on to
both
have the
met him.
series.
You wanted to, yeah,
Wait,
you wanted to share. Well, then
yeah, let me
we could talk
share.
for hours about J.
Oh,
Allen Hynek.
here's this. I had that out of order.
Oh,
Anyway,
okay,
let
you
me go
do
back.
have it.
Yeah, let me go back to that. But let me say real quick. So I met J. Allen Hynek in 1975 at the New York Star Trek convention, and
Wow.
he may have been at the 74 conference convention, and he definitely was at the 76. But I didn't go to 76 conference because they called that the disaster con.
Oh,
And the reason why they thought the Star Trek 76 in New York was a disaster is because they started paying the stars to attend. And up until then, it was all like a fan con. People came because they were in the movement. It was more like the
oh,
60s hippies, but then war. So this was a movement. So nobody got paid. It was a fan based thing. So I was at the 75 conference and I met Hynek, Roddenberry, Asimov, and they were on these panels and they sometimes had somebody else,
I think I
some of the
went to the
writers.
New York conference and I went to one in Knoxville, but
Well,
I
at
don't
this
know.
conference,
And one, yeah, go ahead.
let me finish this. At this conference, they announced that the movie was coming back, and that's why that was monumental. It's like because it was fan based, and we just wanted to get this series back in some form. So they announced. Now the movie didn't come back until '79, I believe, the first one, the real long one that people.
You'll have to add all that crossover into science fiction.
I do, yeah. So what was and I found a booklet from the 75 online, one copy left, and I ordered it from Amazon, and I hope I get it and it cost me like $30. But I went, I need to see this because I was there live, and it's going to spark memories. Because when I see this book from that time period, I'm going to go, oh yeah, I remember that. So one of the important things was the announcement of the movie. What we wanted to do was bring back media which featured extraterrestrials as humanoids, as identifiable. They weren't the blob. They weren't a monster. They're not going to eat us.
Data?
Like Data, like Nimoy as Spock.
Helping AI.
Everybody, even the the Klingons and their opposition, they were intelligent. They had ships. They were flying around. So we were taking a quantum leap from science fiction up until then, except for The Day the Earth Stood Still. It had just presented aliens as they came over and took us over, and they were blobs. They were monsters, and it's like we got tired of monsters. And so when Star Trek, it was intelligent extraterrestrials. So this was very important because when we got the movie back, that's what changed. Now we have the idea of intelligent extraterrestrials. So, but a little side here. So, in the panels, and I had a movie camera, one of the old fashioned, and somewhere that video is in my sister's house. But she probably will think it's junk and throw it away. I don't know. I can't get my sister to cooperate. My sister has the family home that's been in our family for over 100 years. So she's got years of stuff from the family there. Anyway, so we discussed how science fiction and science fact were merging, and that Star Trek was literally blazing a trail to shape our future. So we felt that we were going to have a very positive future, and the audience, they were trying to paint them as a bunch of I don't know, crazy people, but there were some very intelligent people who were asking these geniuses, Gene Roddenberry, Isaac Asimov, Robert Heinlein, and J. Allen Hynek. They were at our disposal, and we had these huge. I remember I was in this one conference room, and it was really hot, and there was no water. And Heinlein had introduced the concept of water brothers from Stranger to Strange Land. So somebody came in and filled the water glass at the end of the aisle, and we would just pass and take one sip and pass. So we're drinking from the same cup. All these people, it was like a ritual. While we had the panel up above with these amazing geniuses, and then people were just asking questions, and it was just mind-boggling. So then Heinlein would only give autographs to those who donated blood. So he had a blood drive. He said, "We have a shortage of blood. You want my autograph?" And I got to attend a dinner. So all these amazing people were in this intimate room with this dinner dance, and I got to go up and fast dance with Walter Koenig and George Takei on the dance floor.
Wow!
So that was just story. Yeah, that was my backstory. So
this is how ufology crosses over from science fact to science fiction. But we must agree that ace folk life and those that like to tell the stories of people, myths, and legends also includes ancient history, ancient astronauts, and new thought teachings of the awakening and the ascension age, and all of those things that entail health and wellness and immigration into our medical world with the way we are all seeing the future in cyberspace as well as space. So it's all going to come together, and we're helping weaving the tale as Ascension Masters and Alien Contact Organization, ACO Association, and UFO Association. We're all coming together. Now, these various events, Star Trek.
Right.
Yes.
So the other thing was the backstory was Roddenberry was an actual experiencer. He had been in the military or associated with it, and he was actually creating information to begin disclosure. Same
So
with
was Ronald
Heinlein
Reagan.
and right. So
He was a
disclosure
movie
doesn't happen
star.
around, and you have to pay attention to disclosure because they're not allowed to really say aliens here and they exist like we can. So they have to say it in. Here's this movie, this television program. Pay attention to what's really going on. So now there's the question.
I'd like to add that, but for the youngsters and all those prior to September 2021 that were born, and even for those after, that Ronald Reagan was a movie star before he was the president of the United States. And now that he had a UFO sighting, he is one of at least 4 presidents, maybe 5 to 10, that have actually admitted to seeing something in space, including President Jimmy Carter. And would you like to mention any others?
Well, there's the story, there's the official story and the unofficial story. Apparently Roosevelt, Truman, Eisenhower, Nixon, and all these people met with extraterrestrials, had conversations, negotiated treaties. So there's that story. And Reagan was not left out of the loop, and apparently they all get included in their briefing after they become,
military, the industrial complex
and
takes over with Eisenhower.
And I think maybe even Thomas Morris was the one that was in the meeting at Camp David with Reagan, and they debriefed Reagan about our extraterrestrial. And Linda Moulton Howe has gone into that extensively in some of her presentations. How Reagan met with I forget the name. No, it was somebody CIA. It was somebody CIA or FBI that was debriefing Reagan on the alien presence in the United States, and then they mentioned he had an aide. Well, we connected the dots, and that was Thomas Morse was the aide that was helping Reagan.
Camp David, and I've been with him in a car outside of Camp David.
Yeah, so Reagan was getting confused, and so he get Tom, what's that? And Tom would go, yes or no or da-da. So we think that was Theresa's husband. But he's dead, so we can't ask him now. He died. What year did he die? 2015, December.
Oh well,
2015.
But things get lost in ufology and alienology. They definitely do.
Right.
All right.
So we're running out of time. We have 7 minutes.
Have you any questions, or would you like to go through these with me real quick?
Can you see this slide here? Okay, so you told me about you met Jay Alejandro on plane, and I was asking how did you get to me? You don't remember that? You don't remember
where we were going? Where did you meet him? Had to be approximately 85. Where 85. Were I was
Why
on
were you
plane.
on?
I don't remember, but I was reading a Ruth Montgomery book, Aliens Among Us. And he asked me if I believed in that when he walked by, but I believe it was a predestined meeting by either ET, if you want to believe in those, or Men in Black. So what did you discuss? We discussed business, finances, how there was more, he was hoping for more money to come into Denver, Colorado, where I was, I was stationed. I went there I left Orlando and went to Lowry Air Force Base. So I guess I was meeting him at Lowry Air Force Base. Before we took off on the plane, I think I met with him. If it wasn't him, it was somebody giving me my clearance levels. And they took me out out on the tarmacs to get away from the buildings in 85 to discuss if it wasn't him, it was another older man like him. But they had brought me back in for a certain mission and task. So, what was the question? What did you discuss?
Oh, what did you discuss? Yeah, you said
We
you.
discussed my belief system, his belief system, that his health was ailing him, but he never said he. I don't remember him saying he got cancer. I don't remember him saying he got that, but Brent, we didn't talk really openly about his illness yet. So I must have just. I know he moved to Florida, and I did too. But I believe, and if my memory serves me correctly, everything that he and I did was between Denver, Edward Air Force Base, Lowry Air Force Base, Chicago O'Hare, maybe Ellington, maybe Langley. What did you discuss? Air Force business, Navy business, Army, Navy, Air Force, intelligence. This was long before we had Homeland Security.
Right.
What happened when you ended up sitting with him? Okay, I moved from my place. I guess that I booked or the government booked, because back in the day, things were classified, and they would swap people at the desk if I was flying from. Back in that time, they used commercial flights for
Right.
investigators, and the girl at the desk would change. So I don't remember if it was military or if it was commercial flights. But we discussed John Lear, Bob
Oh,
Lazar, um, what I thought of that story.
is that I
Uh,
when did Bob Lazar come out? That was I
I
thought
don't
that
remember.
was the
That was
'90s.
it was after I met. Uh, well, what we did was discuss my family, Los Alamos, me going to White Sands, New Mexico as a child, my uncles that worked at NASA, my uncles that worked at Los Alamos. Basically, they were painting me a picture, and I wasn't that understanding because we were going through genealogy.
Oh,
and
I see.
yeah, so it was like, okay, okay, and yeah, and blah blah blah, and Air Force, and my uncle in the Air Force, and my uncle that flew off a aircraft. His name was Gilmore in the Air Force. I don't know. He knew Air Force side of my family, and I guess real estate value with my grandmother. I don't know. It was a very interesting military complex. Eisenhower, Edwards, Langley intrigue. It was. Let's see what. How long did you talk? Oh, for a couple of hours or 2.5 hours. What was your assigned seat, or did you go sit with him? I was in the middle on the right hand side in the aisle, and I chose usually to sit. I flew so much, Janet. I have long legs, so I was accustomed to booking right by the door, and do the thing so I could help people get out. So that always worked for me. What was your
Right.
size? I don't remember my assigned seat. Uh,
No, it was your seat assigned, or
yes,
did you go sit with?
he
So you
asked
went
me
and
to
sat with.
join him. Yes, he had a couple of seats. He chose to sit in the back near the restrooms for whatever reason. He had told me a story that sticks in my head, which I didn't know. Sitting near the bulkhead was safer towards the tail. And
Right.
what
Yeah.
difference, if any, did you make based on your discussion? I just felt like he was pulling me into a investment capital versus the government. Like there may be me as a contractor versus me in uniform. And that's why a lot of red tape it gets expensed with the Air Force and the government versus uh, contractors, investigators such as myself working for rich attorneys. Like I work for Newton Schwartz, Benton Musselwhite,
We have to start winding this up. We're running out of time. Okay. So, did you talk to him any time after that? Was that your only contact with him?
I had talked to him, well, on the phone, and we discussed CUFOS, Center for UFO Studies. We had some conversations and some writing, and then I didn't hear about his death. I just know I was supposed to meet with a woman, and she was going to be the secretary. And then I knew that she only recently, in the last 10 or 15 years, did an interview, and I missed her. You and I were supposed to interview her. I don't know how but I was told by Jan Aldrich, who is one of our UFO, our associates with Project 1947, our project signer both, that she passed away in one of our radio shows. So our radio shows are good for orators and oral intelligence, our stories. How did you hear about his death? Oh, not for years. Oh, I saw another thing on him. Oh my God. So much. You should keep using these because there is so much to tell.
I want you to give me a collage of your book cover. So we'll work on it. But these are some of the
Oh,
books.
mine are so elementary, Janet. They're just old files off the internet.
Anyway, so we have books. So this is the book I just published called Hero Quest, and
yours are beautiful. I can't compete. I can't compete.
I work with a graphic designer, but I give them all the I give them all the concepts. Anyway, so what I want you to do also, TJ, is give me a list of your websites and how people can contact you.
Oh, Lord.
So how can people contact you, TJ?
I don't believe in keeping all these archives like we did, because Janet and I had 75 to 100 over a 20-year period as we were Aquarian and I don't know what you want to call it, Ascension Center Network. We were collecting stories and blogs and all that, but I don't have the money anymore, Janet. I'm now retired. So I'll be more than happy to keep assisting you. You have a lot more money in your association than mine. And until we get the UFO Association up and running, I can only do archives I can pay for, as a ACO club to help market and promote authors in this.
Well, that's why we want to know. Well, we'll put up a link for donations.
I'm retired now, Janet.
So. I know I'm retired too, and I can afford it, but I found a deal. Like I've been maintaining them mainly because these are the archives of the last. Well,
I appreciate you putting Alien Contact Organization first. I've got Alien Contact Organization still, and UFO Association. Okay, well,
I'll be more. I don't know what you have live. So
I'm just going to do links.
We're going to put up Theresa's stuff here, and I know my stuff. I don't know what Theresa still has, but we do need donations, and we'll figure out a way. If you want to send us donation, each of us can receive our own. Because it's expensive maintaining this, but I just felt like I needed to maintain, because this has a lot of our history from the last. Well, when I met Dr. Lessin in '97, he already had a website, but that website's gone. Things disappeared. He was ahead of the curve, and I went. I'm the one that had a computer background. I better figure out how to do it. So
Jim Thomas, come here. Jim, come here. He is a forensic scientist with the state of Texas. He's my brother-in-law, Janet.
We're going to sign off now because we're over what we agreed to do. But thank you very much for coming, everybody. We'll be back another next week with more. So if you want to contact me, Aquarian Radio Gmail, Theresa. Anyway, if you want, you can write to me, and if you have a question for Theresa, you want to talk to her about something, I'll forward it to her, and then we'll be back. So thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Janet. Hey, let's continue with what you've got. You've got a lot of good information here. I did want to continue our speaking of the history with. I don't want to leave out Glenn Dennis or J. Allen Hynek and the original investigation. But Janet, I would encourage you to go to the National Archives and listen to Bill Anderson and Stanton T. Friedman and Glenn Dennis on the National Archives that we assist with. Okay?
Okay. Well, I'm
All
going to
right.
sign off now, and
All
we'll
right.
talk
Bye.
later.
I'll see you online, everybody. Oh, Janet,
Okay,
put
bye-bye.
this on your social media and put it on UFO
Will
Secret
do.
Space for us if you can.
Okay, I'm going to
UFO
go
Secret
now.
Space. Okay.
Aloha.
Bye bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you, Janet.